We are now live streaming and ready to begin our meeting of Wednesday, February 2nd. Sorry for the delay. We were waiting for a quorum. And today we will be taking local bills in order of 10, 9, 12, 11, and 8. We'll begin with Howard County Bill 10, which is property tax credit for seniors to offset property tax rate increases. And Senator Lamb, this is your bill. Would you like to begin?
Yeah, sure. Happy to start this bill again. I think we had some discussion 2 weeks ago at our initial work group meeting for the delegation. And just as a reminder for folks, this bill is a bill that enables the county council to issue a tax credit for those who have resided in the county for at least 30 years and have a combined income below 75,000 and who are at least 65 years old. And it is mirrored after some of the other jurisdictions that have engaged in a similar type of credit for individuals who are longtime residents, and also to address some of the concerns that we've heard from many constituents about making sure that they can continue to live in their homes and continue to reside in Howard County and Maryland without having to leave after retirement or other things. And so this was an effort to try to help ameliorate some of that and to enable the local county to be able to issue these types of property tax credits if they so choose. Now, I know there were some questions that came up in the first work group meeting that the delegation had with regards to things like the dwelling versus residency requirement, the number of years that people have to reside in the county. We did reach out to Howard County government. I know Ms. Evans-Arthurs is here as well. In examining some of this, it gets very tricky and complicated, I think, while appreciate the intent to change it to or to explore the option of having it so that you can reside in the county for 30 years rather than having lived in the same dwelling. It becomes very difficult to track, and also it generates a lot of administrative burden, I think, for our local Department of Finance to have to monitor this and enforce compliance of it. So it became very tricky that way to address that. The other piece about raising it or altering the 30-year residency requirement, I think there was a discussion of maybe increasing it to 40 years. I think that's a little bit high, so I don't know if we want to do that. And I think we wanted to at least keep a basement of 30 years and start there, and happy to explore, after this is enabled to the county council, if they choose and desire additional latitude to be able to make alterations here, they can certainly come back to us. But I think, as a starting point, the 30 years, I think, makes sense, given when, the average homeowner probably buys a home in Howard County and then when they retire. So hopefully that addresses some of the questions that have come up to this point, but happy to take any others, or I guess if you need to move the bill for discussion purposes, I'll move the bill and then go from there.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Who made the second, please?
Terry.
Terry, we can barely hear you. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Delegate Kittleman. We can't hear you.
I thought I unmuted it.
There you go.
I just wondered if you have an estimate of what this bill could offer seniors. I mean, it looks to me like it wouldn't be a huge amount of tax relief because of the way it's structured with the change in the percentages. So I wondered if you had any idea of, about what kind of relief this might offer seniors, retirees.
Delegate Lamb.
So I think we had reached out to the county. I know their Department of Finance was trying to crunch some numbers, but it really depends on how many people and if there are other criteria that are applied by the county council, right? And so while I understand that, I think all of us want to give as much relief as possible, I think this is just a first start to that process. And, if the council desires the ability to have greater authority in this area, I think they can certainly come back to us. But, I think this is a judicious way as a good first step forward to explore giving this opportunity to the council to implement if they so choose.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, Ms. Rubling, will you please call the vote?
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Senator Gazzoni. I'll record him as absent. Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Eversole,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Delegate Hill, Delegate Hill,
Muted. There you go. Still can't hear you. Yeah, she's giving a thumbs up for yes.
Delegate Kittleman,
Yes.
Delegate Novotny,
Yes.
Delegate Pendergrass. I don't believe I saw her come in. I'll record her as absent. Delegate Tarasa,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great. I'll turn over the meeting to you, Senator Lamb.
Okay, great. So thank you, Chair Watson. Next on the agenda, we have Howard County 9-22. This is Public Schools Alternative Instruction Model Policy. I think we've talked about this for the last 2 weeks, but this is Delegate Watson's bill, and I'll turn it over to her if she has anything that she would like to add. Otherwise, we can open it up for discussion.
Yes.
Anything? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Lamb. And what I would like to say is that we had good discussion last week, and we all sort of discussed an amendment which I have sent to all of you, or Ms. Rubling has sent to all of you. And what the amendment does is it simply rewrites a section so that it will remove the language paper packets. And this is how it reads now. In this subsection, alternative instruction model means synchronous instruction or asynchronous instruction delivered outside of a classroom through learning experiences that do not provide in-person instruction. That is the first part of the amendment, which is something we all discussed last meeting. The second part sort of adds a caveat that we would like this to be for the shortest extent possible. And so it reads that a policy adopted under this subsection and uses an alternative instruction model that requires internet access for certain components to include alternative methods that provide comparable instruction for students or teachers who do not have access to the internet. And this is the part that changes. The use of an alternative instruction model for individual schools be limited to the shortest extent possible until in-person instruction can be resumed. Further, and this is not on the amendment, but I'm going to offer this as part of the amendment, is something Delegate Eversole was working on with some constituents of this bill. And what it would do is change the language at the bottom of that same page. Instead of saying that this must be agreed to with the exclusive bargaining representative for teachers, it will say that the county board and the bargaining units for the school system negotiate the terms of implementing and using an alternative instruction model. So what that does is it says it's not just the bargaining unit for the teachers that must agree to the terms. It is all of the bargaining units, because there was some concern that the ESP workers or the support workers within the school system would not have any say in how this would be developed. And so we have changed that to say bargaining units for the school system. with that, I will move the bill.
We need to move the amendment first.
You're right. I withdraw that motion and I make a motion to adopt the amendment that covers those 3 points.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion, a second on the amendment. I see that Delegate Kittleman had her hand up, and then I saw Delegate Terraza just raise her hand. Delegate Kittleman, was that from the prior bill, or do you still? Oh, okay, all right, you dropped your hand. Delegate Terraza, go ahead.
I'm sorry, who is ESP?
The support personnel in the school system. I believe we have Board of Education member Vicky Cutronio, and if she's available, could she just explain exactly who ESP is, please?
Yeah, that's the para educators and so forth, the support personnel in the school system. And then, yeah.
They're not represented by HCA anymore?
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm on. No,
If I may, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Delegate Ebersol, I mean, you may be
Yeah.
better, since you brought this forth, maybe you could answer this. Thank you.
Right. In different counties, it's different. And since this legislation is going to be precedent setting, it's important for us to set ourselves up. For example, in Baltimore County, there is a separate group called the ESPBC, the Education Support Personnel of Baltimore County, separate from TABCO. In Howard County, HCA does represent them both, but they do represent them, they do negotiate separately. So I think it's important to have it plural there. So we understand it's not just for educators or teachers, but also for other personnel. And I don't know if board member Cutronio wants to say it's not just para educators. ESP is a broad category of people that are in the building.
Yeah, it's a broad category, and I don't know why I'm like having this mental block with it, but it's like the extended school personnel. It's
custodians.
I know my
front office
colleagues are on the
workers.
line too. I'm just having a mental block with this, but it's who was in that bargaining unit, Jen or Antonia?
Dr. Moderano is here. He
Yeah,
knows
but
who's in
let's do that,
ESP.
because
Go ahead, Dr.
I
Moderano.
don't want to misspeak, but yeah.
I was just waiting. Thank you. It is a broad category, and we have HCEA, which represents all of our teachers, and then mainly our paraeducators and other support staff within the schools that support our young people. And then the other piece, which I like the comprehensive nature of this, is we have a separate unit for our administrators as well, which would have a stake in this too. So we have several bargaining units that have an educational impact, and I appreciate that amendment because it's more comprehensive.
Wait
So
a
often
minute.
we forget the administrators. Thank you.
Wait a minute. So this is adding the administrators?
Well, it would be all bargaining units.
Yes.
Well, the only people this would be adding is the administrators.
Again, Delegate Ebersol, do you want to repeat what you just said?
Right. So because it's the bill originally said we're going to with the teachers bargaining unit, HCEA does bargain for ESPs in Howard County. But if you just say teachers, then their ability to bargain how this looks to ESPs would be, I think, could be interpreted to be limited. And of course, administrators have their own organization. All of these people will be people that will be affected by these decisions. So I think they all need to be part of the agreement that occurs with it.
Does this include the AFSCME and those units?
It includes
which-
all bargaining units. Delegate
Okay.
Ebersol, do you want to comment on the origin of this amendment?
Right. Well, we actually spoke to the group that represents educators and not AFSCME, but MSEA said they really were concerned that it was only focused on a single group. And really, if you're going to change people's work conditions that have the possibility, that needs to be something that's negotiated with all the groups. And so, yeah, I would say by pluralizing it, we've included all the groups that would be affected by decision making in this process.
I see that Mr. Moriarty, our committee counsel, also has his hands up. Was there something you want to add to this, Mr. Moriarty?
Thank you, Senator. I just have a question. I would just like to confirm that I'm getting the proposed language right before we vote on any amendment. So my understanding is this last paragraph would now read, the Howard County Board of Education may adopt a policy under paragraph 2 of the subsection. Only of the county board and the bargaining units for the school system in the county negotiate the terms of implementing and using an alternative instruction model. Is there
Yes.
anything in there? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what the change was.
Previously, on page 6, line 8 of the bill, where it says, "And the exclusive bargaining representative for teachers in the county," that would now say, "and the bargaining units for the school system in the county."
I see Ms. Catroni also has her hand up. Did you want to respond to?
I just wanted to
Go ahead.
clarify that ESP stands for Educational Support Personnel.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Terraza, can we move on?
Well, I'm still, I guess I'm thrown a little bit by this amendment without talking to HCEA. Has somebody talked with HCEA? I understand that MSEA was consulted, but has HCEA been consulted? Yes, and they support this?
Yes.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
or Mr.
Okay,
Chair, excuse me, I forgot who's handling this one. Thank you. Yes, from the outset, because of that additional paragraph at the end that allows them to be included in helping to set the conditions for this, which, personally, that has been something I've talked about a great deal, that we need to make sure that they're able to participate in how it's structured. We've talked about having time to prepare and that sort of thing. And I think that they will advocate for that. They have indicated that they're comfortable with it.
With this amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't talk to HCEA. I've spoken to MSEA about it. I think Delegate Watson, you have.
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, HCEA is comfortable with this amendment, which was generated, the concern was generated by MSEA.
Okay, I guess I'm concerned that I'm not sure why we're adding administrators as a unit to bargain here. I don't understand that.
Because all stakeholders, the idea here is to have all stakeholders involved in the decisions about how to implement this.
Okay, why don't we go to Delegate Novotny next?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the time this morning. So my only question is that it seems like, and I would love to get Delegate Ebersol's opinion on this, but it seems like there's no end date that is defined in this. It could be the shortest amount of time, but the shortest amount of time could be a pandemic, a year and a half. But then the addition is with these different union groups that they could have a non-agreement and then keep kids out of school indefinitely. I mean, is that a possibility throughout this? So where in this bill or this amendment does it say we have an end date?
So, yeah, it's your bill, Delegate Watson.
Well, the involvement of the different bargaining units is on the front end to determine when and how and where they would use this. We put the language in there about the shortest amount of time to definitely clarify that that was our intent. There is and was some discussion about on the part of Delegate Ebersol and myself, and I believe Delegate Terraza, about how we quantify an end date. And because this is going to be a precedent-setting bill, we really want the Delegate Ebersol to bring this discussion to the Ways and Means Committee so that they can determine the appropriate phrase to put in there, because we could choose 10 days and then we had to, you have to come back and look at it, but maybe that's too long. Maybe we choose 3 days, maybe we choose 5 days. But we felt like, since it was state precedent setting, that we should leave it the way that it is coming out of our delegation and allow Ways and Means to tackle what would be the appropriate phrase to insert to make sure that we do have not unlimited access to this. Delegate Ebersol, would you add anything to that?
No, I wouldn't. Actually, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Now, I appreciate both of you and bringing forward this, because it is concerning, in my opinion, especially giving this type of access and responsibility to non-elected officials. I would feel much more comfortable with a unit like the Board of Education, we have members here being wholly responsible for these decisions on behalf of our parents and our kids, because they are accountable to those in Howard County. So I do appreciate you trying to explain it, but in my opinion, I don't think there's an end date. Although I'm a big fan of using technology, I don't think this sets us up for the correct precedents that you're going for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Next, I see we have Delegate Kittleman. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some of the same concerns that the Delegate Novotny has, but mine are, if you have 3 different bargaining units weighing in on this, as I understand it, this is just enabling legislation, right? We're telling the county it can do this. But I think what happens if one group doesn't want to do it? I think that we absolutely have to put in place a policy that allows school systems to use virtual learning. And leaving it up to that many different unions gives me pause. Now, once they've made a decision on the policy, that's it. Who makes the decision then thereafter to actually implement the policy?
With that, I would ask the superintendent to chime in.
So thank you. Good morning once again, delegation. I think it is worded extremely well in terms of providing the authority and the ability for the local Board of Education, one, to establish the policy. Board of Education's established policy. They define the what. Then through the process of negotiations and working with our stakeholders, it is up to the superintendent to provide the how to inform the board of how that policy will be implemented. And with those pieces, I think this is worded extremely well to give that local latitude for the local Board of Education to provide the direction to the superintendent with the input of those stakeholders, as raised by Delegate Novotny as well as you, Delegate Kittleman.
I see Ms. Catroni also has her hand up. Did you want to, was it in response to this question too?
I think it's been answered. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, thank you.
Great.
So you say the Board of Education does what? Says we want to have this policy, and they're the ones who put this in motion?
So the way the legislation reads is that a policy be adopted under the subsection shall require the public schools to use the alternative educational model with all the wording there. It requires the Board of Education to establish a policy, one. Through the process of developing that policy, they provide the what of what needs to be covered using the legislation as a guide to be comprehensive. Then they turn it over to the superintendent who provides the implementation of that to make certain that it is in sync with the legislation as well as with the policy.
I find that confusing, but since it's enabling legislation, I will.
Yes.
Ms. Watts, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the ways you can think about it is that we kind of lay the tracks and Dr. Monterano steers the train. So to Delegate Novotny's comment, the Board of Education would not be the ones who decide the end date, right? That is an operational issue. The stopping of the train would be Dr. Monterano's deal, but we would just lay the tracks so he can kind of guide the school system.
You know, I'm not, that's the one piece that didn't concern me. My concern was more as to how this ultimately would come to be. And I guess there are so many people involved, or so many organizations.
We do go through when we negotiate contract, like pay and that kind of thing. We do go through all these negotiating, all these units, all these bargaining units. So we are familiar and comfortable with negotiations. It's something we do often. So
Yeah.
I understand that gives you pause working with so many people, but we do this often.
How often do you negotiate with the unions? Isn't it every 3 years or something? Or do you go in anytime there's another issue?
All the time.
Okay.
All of the time, yes. Very frequently over the past 2 years, that's for sure.
Every work, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the analogy, Ms. Watts. It brings new impression to the term railroaded. Next, I see Delegate Ebersol. Go ahead.
Just real quick, one more time, just take one more bite at the apple. Everybody who works in our education system is integral to making it function smoothly. And all of them have to have input in how a policy like this will be implemented in a way that is most beneficial to our students and most beneficial to the education process. They all have good insights and they're all a part of it. Administrators, ESPs, teachers, even your cafeteria workers and your custodians help to keep the building running. You can't ignore you. Excuse me.
Wonder if it's not there.
Excuse me.
Parents.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you because I was still talking.
I said the work group not.
I know, but I wasn't
there.
I'm sorry, Delegate Kittleman,
Can we Delegate Ebersol? Can we let Delegate Ebersol continue?
Well, I've lost my thought now, but thank you.
All right, I see Delegate Watson has her hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say that on the issue of end date, I'm not going to dispute in general what Board of Education member Watts just said, but it is up to the Board of Education to set the guardrails on this policy. And if our elected officials, board members, wished to put something in the policy that would specify how an end date is determined, they absolutely can do that. So I think there is room for that within the Board of Education development of the policy, and also within the Ways and Means Committee discussion. I just want to remind people that this is about trying to keep students learning. And, you know, if we add days to June every time we have to shut down the schools and we can't do alternative learning, that is not beneficial for our students. So yes, there are some legitimate concerns here that I think we've discussed, but I think we also have this policy in a very good place to move forward to Ways and Means. We do understand its precedent setting, and I do believe that the Senate and the House committees will have additional input. With that, I would like to call the question on the amendment.
Okay, I see no further hands up. So Ms. Rubelling, can you call the question on, take the roll on the amendment?
Clarification.
Yes, go ahead, Delegate Hill.
There's the amendment that we have a copy of in the folder, which is the one that talks about the end date and all that. Then there's the one about including the other bargaining units. Are those two separate amendments?
They're one amendment. The
Okay.
amendment that you have a copy of in your folder is the amendment, and we are adding what we have said to line 8 on page 6, which we have read, and I will read again just to clarify for you. Where it says, of this subsection, only if the county board and exclusive bargaining representatives for teachers in the county negotiate the terms. That is the part being changed, and it's being changed to, and the exclusive bargaining units for the school system in the county negotiate the terms. So we're simply changing the teachers to bargaining units in the school system.
So the question is, do we have to amend the amendment to accept it as a whole? That's the question.
When I explained the amendment,
Right.
I added that part to it. So I do not believe we have to amend the amendment.
I don't think we have to amend the amendment. I think we can take the amendment as drafted and described by Delegate Watson.
Very good, thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions about the amendment, I think everyone's clear on what we are voting for now, which is the amendment as described. Ms. Rubelling, can you please call the roll?
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Senator Gazzoni is absent. Senator Hester, Senator Hester,
Abby, I believe she's in the garage, so she may have dropped off the call.
Come back to her vote.
Sure. Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Ebersol,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Kittleman,
Sorry, on the amendment, no.
Delegate Novotny,
No.
Delegate Pendergrass, I believe she's absent. Delegate Terasa,
Yeah, to explain my vote, I'm going to vote for this amendment, but I have concerns about the additional piece on this, but I do think it makes a lot of other improvements, so yes.
okay, well, we are lacking a majority and a quorum in the Senate.
Okay, so Senator.
Why don't we hold?
Chair Lamb, yeah.
Yeah, why don't we hold this open until it sounds like we just temporarily lost Senator Hester, probably when she pulled into the garage below. Are we comfortable?
We can postpone this until
Yeah,
later.
why don't we hold this because we can't act further with the actual bill itself. So if that's okay, we'll come back to this after we regain Senator Hester. So we can move on to the next bill temporarily, and then we can circle back. So this is Howard County 12-22, disposable bag fees exemption. Chair Watson, do you want to?
Sure.
Take this one?
Yes. Delegate Hill, this is your bill. This is Howard County Bill 12.
Correct. All right, so what this bill does is it requires that in Howard County, products that are purchased with SNAP or WIC cards, which some of, if you don't know, are basically paid for with a credit card type of device these days, that they would be exempt from the 5-cent fee. This was put in at the request of Councilwoman Rigby, and she did not get an invitation for today. So I would ask the chairs if we can have the discussion, because we didn't, I introduced it earlier in the session, but we didn't have a discussion, and then postpone for any questions perhaps to next week when hopefully we can get a Zoom link invitation to the councilwoman at that time and take the vote at that time. If that's all right. Chair Watson.
Figure out.
Thank you for that. And do we have any discussion on this bill?
Mr. Moriarty looks like he has his hand up.
And this is not to discuss this bill. I was just going to point out, in case others hadn't noticed, I believe Senator Hester is now present. I don't know if you wanted to
There she is.
complete the vote on.
Senator Hill, could we just pause you for a minute and go back and finish this vote and then come back to you?
Sure.
Senator Lamb, would you please take over as chair?
Yeah, sure. So this is rewind for 2 minutes back to Howard County 9-22 on the alternative instruction model policy. We had an outstanding vote on the amendment that Delegate Watson described. I think we are waiting on Senator Hester's vote. How do you vote on that?
Sorry, I had technical difficulties. Can you clarify, is it just the amendment or is the bill? I still have questions on the bill overall.
It's just the amendment. It's just the amendment, and then we can move on to the bill as amended.
Okay, I am fine with the amendment. I still have questions on the bill. So that's a yes for the amendment.
Great. So Ms. Rebelling, you have Senator Hester as a yes.
Yes, the motion passes.
Okay, great. So we have the bill now as amended for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I move the bill.
Second.
Okay, there's a move and second. Senator Hester, you still have your hand up?
No.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Rebelling, can you please call the roll on the bill? This is the bill as amended.
Yes, Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Senator Gazzoni is still absent. Senator Hester,
No.
Delegate Atterbury,
This is on the overlying bill as amended.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Delegate Ebersol,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Kittleman,
Yes.
Delegate Novotny,
No.
Delegate Pendergrass is absent, and Delegate Tarasa.
With the same reservations I had about the one part of the amendment, but I do think it was improved significantly by the amendment, so yes.
Okay, well, I believe we're lacking a majority in the Senate, so the motion fails.
Senator Lamb?
Yeah.
Senator Hester voted no, correct?
Senator Gazzoni vote?
He's absent still, correct?
He is absent, yes. he has not indicated how he would vote.
I know, but doesn't he have the opportunity to vote after the meeting?
If I may,
Ordinarily, he would have the opportunity to vote after the meeting as long as it doesn't change the outcome of the vote.
that is
Are
also,
we able to hold it open?
I was kind of concerned this might happen last week, so I raised the question in our department and just to support Senator Lamb's statement.
Can I ask the attorney, what would we need to do to change the outcome of this if in fact Senator Gazzoni wishes to support the bill?
Sorry, I was talking while muted. My understanding is that he's absent, and a vote after this meeting cannot change the outcome of this. Which is what it would do.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
One at a time. Delegate Feldmark first.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I just think procedurally, and maybe the delegation council can confirm, but I believe anyone who voted in support of the motion could ask for the motion to be reconsidered, and that request could be made at a time when Senator Gazzoni was present. And if Senator Gazzoni wishes to vote for the bill, we could reconsider when he is present and able to vote for the bill. Is that correct, Dara?
I'm not aware of anything certainly that opposes that. I kind of would defer to the chairs on this if they're satisfied with that proposal. I have no reason to say that can't be done.
For what it's worth, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I think
And-
that's my understanding as well. It mirrors the committee process that is present for the standing committee. Does that clarify things for the delegation?
So we will just move on past this bill. And if we want to resurrect it, we will do so at a later date.
Right. I see Delegate Novotny and Delegate Hill still have your hands up. Is it to this question?
Yes, very quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we just get that in writing, that policy in writing, if we do choose to resurrect this bill?
We will consult with counsel and decide if we can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Hill.
Yes, I believe Delegate Feldmark is correct, and we will find out, but I also wanted to know, if not for this bill, for future, are we able, to put someone motion and we vote to hold the vote open till the end of today's meeting? I understand that they can't vote once the meeting is over if it changes, but are we allowed to leave the vote open until the end of the meeting?
I would defer to Mr. Moriarty on that.
I see no difference between holding the vote open for the rest of this meeting and the situation that we had on the vote for the amendment, where we held it open until Senator Hester was able to vote. So I would have no issue with that.
I would like to move that.
Delegate Hill, we lost your audio, but I assume that
I would like to move that we hold the vote open until the end of today's meeting.
Okay, so it sounds like, based on Mr. Moriarty's interpretation as delegation counsel here, that if Senator Gazzoni came on to cast a vote, that would still be considered as part of the vote that was taken. Is that correct, Mr. Moriarty?
If we hold the vote, yes.
Okay.
I believe Delegate Terrazzo has a question.
I guess the question is if we can legally do it. If we can legally do it, I don't understand why we're taking a vote on it. But
I don't think we need to take a vote on it. I think if Mr. Moriarty has issued an opinion that in his guidance as legal counsel to the delegation, that we can hold the vote open, that a vote cast later during this meeting would be considered as part of that vote.
so it's just a chair decision, isn't it? if he's given legal advice so we can do that, then you guys decide whether to do that. I don't understand why we're voting on legal advice. Is I guess.
Yeah, I don't think we need a vote on the chairs or on the legal counsel's guidance on this. So I think our plan is to hold the vote open. If Senator Gazzoni joins during this meeting, we can add him to that vote. Delegate Kittleman, you have something to this question?
Yes, just a question. This is a little odd because we didn't come to a conclusion, but my understanding on reviewing a vote is that it's the losing side must make the motion to reconsider it as opposed to, and I don't know how that applies here because there wasn't a winning or losing side, but maybe our counsel can check into that for us.
I think there are actually two rules that are operative here. So one is the one that Delegate Feldmark brought up, which is per general operating procedures similar to standing committees, that if there is someone from the, quote, losing side that asks for something to be reconsidered, that it can be brought back up. That's one general level of guidance. The other level of guidance that Mr. Moriarty just conveyed to us is that, in his opinion, we as a delegation can hold votes open until members can join at some point during that meeting to still be considered as having voted at the time that the initial vote was taken.
I'm fine with that. I'm sorry, I'm fine with that. It just that the discussion before that started with anyone who voted for the motion can ask for it to be reviewed the next meeting. But I felt it was, again, like I say, on the losing side. So I guess it would be useful to know who it is that could bring it up again.
Ms. Moriarty, you have your hand up?
Yes, so according to my notes here, for a motion to reconsider, it will be a simple majority vote, whether to approve that motion. The motion can only be made by a member who voted for the motion that would be reconsidered.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
The motion to reconsider can only be made by a member who voted for the motion that will be reconsidered. So
that's backwards, isn't it, from every other process?
Pardon?
Every other process I've seen, it's the people who voted against it who would be required to bring it up because they're the ones who would, anyway. That's the way it really works.
My understanding of this language is actually slightly broader in that it would be that only a member who, I guess if somebody who voted in favor of the motion falls into either of these categories, voted for the motion would be that would be somebody who voted on the motion. Basically, Senator Gazzoni could not make a motion to reconsider.
I have no problem with it. I hope it does come up again, but I was just curious of the process. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Hester, you look like you had your hand up.
I do have my hand up, and I just wanted to, formally apologize. I think because I cut out when I went into the garage because I had the meeting on my calendar at 9, that I missed part of the discussion, and therefore I would have held the bill had I had been given the opportunity to. But I wasn't afforded that opportunity because we went straight from voting on the amendment, which I clarified was on the amendment, to voting on the bill. So I just think like during these difficult times, we all need to give each other like a bit of grace. Obviously, we need to do what the law says, but like it was an honest mistake on my behalf. So I just wanted to formally apologize.
Okay. So based on Mr. Moriarty's guidance as delegation counsel earlier, we will see if Senator Gazzoni joins this, and if he does while this meeting is still open, then we will add his vote to that roll. So we will move back to where we were on the agenda, back to Howard County 12-22. This is a disposable bag fees except exemption. And I think Chair Watson was facilitating this discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, and so Delegate Hill, did you finish with your sort of introduction and explanation?
Yeah, so just wanted to see if there was any concerns, questions, or discussion from the members.
I see Delegate Novotny. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Hill, was this discussion about exempting people of lower income brought up when we had first established the bag tax? Do you remember?
We did have a discussion about that and decided not to address it at that time. We felt that it was, you know, some of the arguments, I don't remember the specific arguments because this was about 3 years ago now, but I would not have been surprised if they were along the lines of the discussion that we had on the floor of a similar statewide bill, where the issues are is it somehow demeaning to imply that people of lower income can't afford to support their environment, or that their communities, in other words, if this is supposed to be an incentive to keeping to decreasing the number of disposable bags that we find in our environment, that they're not entitled to have communities that aren't littered with plastic bags, you know, on the one side, so the fee should apply equally to everyone. And the other side is that if it makes a difference, you know, in your pocketbook, it makes a greater difference when you have less income, you know, than it might for us. And by the same token, if you are a person of less income, the ability to carry bags with you in the trunk of your car, and you know, have them available because you know that you're planning on going to the store is very different when you have a car, when you're not dependent on public transportation. The luxuries that come with means are more than sometimes we appreciate, and that you know, that all environments will be impacted, even if the immediate environment, a significant number of people in one part of the county or what have you who have lower income. And I think for Howard County, there are some concentrations of poverty, but it is not perhaps to the same extent that we see in other parts of the state in terms of the density of the poverty in certain areas. So, I mean, those are the kinds of arguments that we had in the debate over the initial bill.
Thank you, Delegate Hill. That provides some good context. I don't think anyone would argue with the fact that we want to clean and to conserve our environment. I truly believe this bag tax is a regressive tax. Those who don't have means, as you described, might be on public transportations are hurt the most. And I am obviously blessed and lucky to not have a problem paying a 5-cent bag tax when I use a bag, but I do appreciate the background. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Delegate Terraza.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the discussion, I don't think it's just about whether it's demeaning or not, but I also think it's about, you know, this is about eliminating litter from the neighborhood. And in addition to that, and people in every neighborhood deserve that protection. And that's why, I mean, that's why when this came up in my committee, I voted against it. And when this discussion happened, I was opposed to exempting out folks. And I do appreciate the concern that Delegate Hill is raising, but I think we had discussed it. And I think there are other considerations that lead me in the other direction.
So Madam Chair, if there's no further discussion, I would like to move that we table this to a future meeting and invite Councilwoman Rigby to be present in case there are any questions or so that she can.
I'm a little trouble hearing you, but I think what you're saying is you'd like to hold it and ask Councilmember Rigby to be present at the next session?
Correct.
Okay, that is fine. And unless we have any objections, we will move on to Council Bill 11, which is also Delegate Hill's bill. Delegate Hill?
Okay, so this is a bill, as we discussed earlier, that's designed to prevent concentration of Class A liquor license establishments, which would be liquor stores, from being concentrated in a small area. And there are two amendments that I am offering for consideration. The original bill was defining the geographic area in a rather awkward, let me pull the bill up, manner, and the one amendment simplifies it to within, a 1 mile radius. And the second amendment takes out the applicability of the legislation to renewal licenses or the renewal of a license. So it would really apply to first-time licenses. And what it essentially would say is that when you apply for a liquor license, if you're asking for the license to be carried in a establishment that's within a mile of another liquor store, that the liquor board can't grant that. You'd have to be further away than a mile.
Delegate Kittleman.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what change you were making. Did the change say that take away the idea that someone who has a license has to give it up if the other redistricting changes things?
Yes, it would not apply. The one amendment says it would not apply to renewing license. So if you're renewing a license, it doesn't apply. So, I'll give an example. In my district, Allview Liquors is located right off Annapolis Road, right next to 108. And there is the Dorsey Search Village Center, which is out of its back. There's a liquor store there.
Madam Chair, I'm having
the
trouble
model
hearing Delegate Hill.
Okay, is that better? I'm really trying. Can you hear me? Is that
Yes,
better?
I think if you're closer to the microphone, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. So the example I'll give a practical considering Allview Liquors that many of you are aware of. It's been there forever, for longer than I've been in the county. They're located right off 108 in Old Annapolis Road. And, within a half mile, there's the Dorsey Search Village Center. There's a liquor store there. So if there was a renewing coming up, those two establishments would be able to keep their license because they're established and they are close. But another licensee trying to come into that area would not be able to be closer than a mile to either of those two establishments.
Thank you.
Any follow-up question on that? Okay, we go to Delegate Terraza.
Sorry, that was my question. Appreciate it.
Where did Delegate Kittleman go? She was up there. Her hand is now down. I see our council's hand is up. Can I ask if you have a comment on this bill? And you are muted. Mr. Moradi, are you with us? Your hand is up.
Yes,
And
thank you.
Is your comment on this bill?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
So with Delegate Hill's permission, I do have amendment language which combines these two amendments together. I don't know if that's how you would like to present them. That might make things a little clearer than presenting one amendment which deals with renewal only and one amendment which deals with the change to within a 1 mile radius of an existing license. So it's your call.
I have no objection as long as there are members who feel like they want to look at them separately, right? I think they both clean up the bill and make it much more manageable and fairer to the licensees, and also serve the purpose and the goal of the legislation. But I offered them separately so that members that have it. So yes, I would agree with offering, you have language to offer them as a single change to the bill. I have no objection to that. Delegate Feldmark is raising her
The
hand.
amendment for clarity purposes that you're combining, or at least go over the changes?
Okay, was that directed to me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, I can share my screen if that's appropriate, or I can just explain it, whichever you feel is best. What I would do would strike the current amendments, strike the reference to renewal, so it would only apply to issuing a. I'm going to share screen here. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes, I mean, I can. Everybody else?
Okay, good. So what it does is it combines the two amendments. It would, and the impact of it would be, it would change the prohibition to an issuance of a new license within a 1 mile radius of any location where a Class A license is already issued and is in use. It would not apply to, in the case where two existing Class A licenses are within a 1 mile radius of each other, they would still be able to be renewed. They would effectively be grandfathered in.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, may I say that I think Ms. Ribbley put an interlineated version in your bill file.
Thank you. Delegate Ebersol.
I think Delegate Feldmark's first, and I want to hear what her question is.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Delegate Ebersol, yes, it's about math. So I guess I want to understand, we are replacing the proportionality requirement with this 1 mile radius, I believe. And so just for clarification, I guess as long as there is at least a 1 mile distance, it would be okay for the proportion of Class A licenses in the district to be greater than its proportion of the population, as long as it's not over the overall district limit and it's maintaining the 1 mile radius. Is that correct?
The proportion doesn't play in at all. So all that would apply is what we passed last year about the cap on the number of licensees within an election district. And within that election district, new licensees couldn't be any closer to an established license than 1 mile.
Thank you.
All right. I think next we had Delegate Ebersol, and then Senator Hester, followed by Delegate Terrazas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So having dealt with the liquor laws in Baltimore County and recognizing that many of them seem to be initially designed to keep liquor stores, not a proliferation of them in certain communities, they also have the effect of tamping down competition. And I'm a little concerned that if we make sure that there's only one liquor store in that area, in that shopping mall, outdoor shopping mall, it will actually be creating a situation where they'll sort of have exclusive rights to that particular area. So this bill concerns me a little bit because it goes to that, in my opinion.
Okay. Next we have Senator Hester.
I think I may have answered my own question, but I just wanted to clarify that this is only going forward. So if there are places where we have an existing 2 stores within a 1 mile radius, it does not apply to them. That's correct, right?
Correct. With the amendment.
Okay. Senator Hester, does that address your question? All right. Delegate Terrazas, followed by Delegate Kittleman.
Okay, apologies. I'm confused about what the second thing is. So the first thing is it's only going forward. The second thing, and I think that's what Delegate Feldmark was asking about. So maybe that's the part I'm not understanding what the change is. The changes from your bill would have done what and won't. So I'm confused about the proportionality piece and what was happening in your bill and what's not happening in your bill. You're on mute.
Sure. Let me, hold on 1 second. I'm playing with. All right. So the original language, pull it up in front of me. When I worked with the Beverage Association, I looked at we defined something called a geographic sector. And the sector, we talked about that within a geographic sector, which had a radius of 1 mile, that the proportion of licensees within that sector could not exceed the proportion of the population. So if within a 1 mile radius, you had 2% of the population, then you couldn't have more than 2% of the licenses that that election district had. And that just got cumbersome. We sort of started imagining these intersecting 1 mile radius geographic sectors, and do they overlap? And there was just concern about how that would be made operational, and how it would be interpreted by the board. And it was just cleaner to just say you just don't want them closer than 1 mile. It could be a half mile, but when I sort of paced it out and I spoke with Jack Maloney, who's, he's not in the meeting, but he's watching the meeting and available, that it was just cleaner to say 1 mile. 1 mile seemed to be about the right distance. And, we've all seen, to Delegate Eversole's point, we certainly don't want so much exclusivity, but what we do not also want, or what I don't want to see, is the kind of densely populated, liquor store in every corner that some of the communities that I grew up in and visited outside of Howard County had as their character.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. So then the question is, are you removing, with this amendment, are you removing something that's in the existing law, or you're only adding restriction?
We're adding a restriction. The geographic sector was a term that was introduced by this bill itself.
Okay, so you're not
We're
removing
taking
something
that
that's
right.
Okay, you're not removing something that's existing in the existing law.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Delegate Kittleman.
So the original law, the law that is right in the bill originally, actually takes account of how densely populated an area is, because my problem with the 1 mile radius means if you're sitting in the middle of the densest part of Howard County and you got there first, you have a huge concentration of people who will shop at your store. Whereas if it's just the proportionality, there would be an opportunity for another store to open, and usually competition is what dictates whether or not you're going to have a liquor store or any store there. That people aren't going to open businesses when they can't make money. So I don't think this is necessary at all. But if it is, I think it's better if we don't add the 1 mile radius.
Okay, so, and I mean, that's a valid argument, and that's why I sort of was driving around and walking around and looking at, on Google Maps about 1 mile versus a half mile, what's that nice, that zone to be in. And, if I were someone who had to walk to a liquor store and my closest liquor stores were 1 mile from each other, I might be, 1/10 of a mile away from one and 9/10 of a mile away from the other, but I might be a half mile from both, right? So that's it. The most I'm going to be is 1 mile away. And if there are 2 in the area, the most I'm going to be from one. So when you look at it from that perspective, it really, I don't think it stops additional competition, and it doesn't really set you up for monopoly if you know, if the closest liquor store is a mile away, I don't think that's overly burdensome for someone to say, gee, I'm not going to go to that other place because it's so far away. Therefore, you know, liquor store A is going to get all my business because the other one is just, you know, it's a burden to get there. So that's just me. I think a mile is a reasonable number. And I think, again, it's more operable for the goals than defining geographic sectors. I see Delegate Chair Atterbury has her hand up.
Yeah, I guess Delegate Atterbury.
Thank you. So I just think that listening to the conversation and just picturing where I live, there are 2 or 3 liquor stores within less than a mile. And I certainly prefer one more than the other, just simply because it's literally a stone's throw away and they have amazing customer service. I went to another one and they didn't have great customer service, so I refused to go there. But I think for me, having that many, it doesn't do harm to the community. I've certainly talked to other people who prefer one over the other. And I think the 1 mile, changing that at this point, I think is too great of a restriction on competition. So for that reason, I will be voting no.
On the amendment or the entire bill?
On the amendment and the underlying bill.
Senator Hester, followed by Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Chair Lamb. I was just curious if we've been able to have the Mr. Milani weigh in on this and whether it's been tried anywhere else in the state and what the resulting, impact has been. It seems like we're all trying to make decisions based on, where we live. And, I live in a pretty rural area, so I don't, it's hard for me to make that decision based on where I live. So, do you think that we could possibly have somebody weigh in, next week?
Are you asking for a hold?
I was asking if we've had input or if we could get input. So I would hold it if we have not had that opportunity.
Okay. There's a request to hold. Delegate Feldmark, anything you want to add before we, if there are no objections, we'll go ahead and hold this bill.
Yeah, can I just ask my question quickly so maybe we can get a response next next meeting? I guess my question is, as I think about this, I'm thinking about sort of the existing landscape of stores and the idea of a new store trying to get a license, right? But my concern is what happens when a store closes, right? And so that existing landscape has now changed, but we may be blocking a replacement. So I just wanted to raise that question, and if we can talk about it next time, that's fine with me.
And I'll just start off, we can finish the conversation later, but that was sort of the discussion about the renewal. And the question is, who owns the license, right? Does the license belong to the county? And the county then bestows or whatever grants the license to a licensee, or is it the store owner who owns the license and they can sell the license to someone else to take over their establishment? So that's where that discussion is. And to the extent that we're talking about, if people generally support the idea that we want to have protections in place to prevent excessive density, if anyone has a suggestion of an alternative or thinks a half mile is better or thinks whatever, I'm certainly open to those discussions and would be interested in any recommendations you might have. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a request to hold this bill. So we will add it to retainer for next week's agenda. So we are holding that bill. I see that we do have Senator Gazzoni who's joined us. We have a vote open on Howard County 9-22. This is the alternative instruction model policy. The vote that's outstanding is the overall vote on the bill. And so, Senator Gazzoni, do you have a vote that you would like to cast on the overall bill?
Yeah, sorry, everybody. Budget talks this morning kept me away. Yeah, I'm a positive on this. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Revelling, so Senator Gazzoni is recording the positive.
Then the motion would pass.
Okay. I see that we are 10 minutes away from when the senators need to run to the floor. So barring any objections, I think we will have the other two, we will have the remaining bills on the agenda included in next week's agenda. At the chair's discretion, we'll figure out what the agenda is and get that distributed to the delegation beforehand. If there are no other objections, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move
Chair
to
Watson?
adjourn.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to adjourn. No objections, so we are adjourned until next week. Stay tuned for another agenda for next week's meeting.